Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the From Darkness to Light series, where we meet some very special people who've had challenges and they share their coping mechanisms and perspectives with us. It gives me massive pleasure to have Rabbi Kelaty in front of me. Rabbi Kelaty has very kindly given us time. Just to give you some background introduction, everyone needs brilliant teachers. Rabbi Kelaty both taught and mentored me for quite a few years in the Mir Yeshiva, and it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for virtually joining us. So do you want to just quickly your background and then the challenge in question, and then we'll talk about some perspectives.
Okay, yes, the challenge is to be able to say this in approximately 3 minutes. Welcome, Rabbi Fine. It's lovely to see you. I'm Nesanel Kelaty grew up in Hendon, moved to Eretz Yisrael, have been honored to teach in Mir Yeshiva for about 18, 19 years. And the story is as follows. About 15 years ago, my son Moishi, who was about 6 at the time, on a Friday night, he was having difficulty breathing. He was breathing very rapidly. Now, at that point, my wife and I were not experienced enough to recognize what was an asthma attack, because he never had asthma before and he doesn't have asthma now. But it was an asthma attack unbeknownst to us. You know, I was just telling him things like, why don't you breathe slower? But anyway, my wife, who has more bina than me, said, I think we should get a doctor. So it was now Shabbos morning, very early, like 6:30, something like that. So we left the house in search of the local physician, an Englishman by the name of Dr. Jackie Slutskin. And I assumed he was davening in Rav Reuben Shul. So I go into Rav Reuben Shul and look around. I must have had a certain anxious look on my face. And my friend, Rabbi Yaakov Tevin, comes over to me. Very kind of him to even, very non-English, by the way. I didn't say anything to him. And he says to me, is everything okay? He extended himself and, he says, is everything okay? So I told him, well, my son's outside and he's having a hard time breathing. I was looking for Dr. Slutskin. So he goes, well, he doesn't daven here. He davens early, and he's wherever he is. You know, he told me where to go to find him.
You should know, by it's 7 o'clock a.m. That's already early by English standards. So this is someone who's davening earlier than then.
Yeah, he's finished up. He's actually in a shir, right?
Wow.
He's listening to a shir. So, part of the miraculous nature of what happened is that Rabbi Tevin has a Down syndrome son. And because of that, he has oxygen in his house.
Wow.
And his wife also has a blood oxygen level counter. So he goes, you should go to my house and tell my wife to test his oxygen level and give him oxygen. So that was the first nace, or second, if you count me meeting Yaakov David. So we rushed to his house, and his wife tested him, started giving him oxygen. I went to find Dr. Slutskin. I waited patiently, like an Englishman, till the shit was finished. It wasn't that long. And Dr. Slutskin comes, and basically he took one look at Moshe, he looked at the readings, and Dr. Slutskin is the James Bond of the medical profession, in my opinion. And he goes, without betraying any kind of panic or anything, he goes, I think it would be better if we had him under observation in hospital. I think I'd like that. Maybe call Hatzalah. So Mrs. Tevin calls Hatzalah, and they're not answering. So Dr. Slutskin, once again, very calmly goes, well, it's not imperative that you go with Hatzalah. We can go by ourselves, go to the hospital. We can drive ourselves. So Mrs. Tevin, bless her, Tzadekes, she jumps into her car. And my wife goes in with Moshe, and I'm sent back to look after the kids and give them lunch or whatever it is. And Dr. Slutskin says, I think I better go with him. I'll go with him to hospital. I thought, that's very nice of you, Dr. Slutskin. He goes, just tell my wife I'll be a bit late. She should make Kiddush without me.
So what time now, Shabbos morning?
this may be around 7:30, 8 o'clock Shabbos morning. So I went to the Slutskins, I delivered the message, I went home. And later in the afternoon, I walked over to Shai Tzedek, and I see that my son is in intensive care because his oxygen level had got very, very low. So I walked back to the kids on Shabbos, and Motzei Shabbos, I called Dr. Slutsky, and I said, he goes, how's Moshe? And I said, well, Dr. Slutsky, he's in intensive care. So he started laughing, and he goes, I don't break Shabbos for many things, but his words were, this was pikuach nefesh behidur rav. This was, this was beyond the measure of what's considered life-threatening. Wow. So the reason, he goes, I didn't just go for the ride. The reason why I went was because I was afraid he would stop breathing along the way.
Wow.
So that's the story. Baruch Hashem, he recovered and he's doing okay now. Baruch Hashem, 15 years later. So
what did that feel like at the time? It sounds like it went quite quickly, but
yeah. So it's interesting because I think immediately after Shabbos, when I was looking back on what was happening, I thought to myself, what hashgacha that is, providence, all the various little things that happened along the way that helped us get through that, the seeming coincidences, and also the fact that I wasn't put in a panic because I didn't really know how severe the situation was until the point where it was already being taken care of. Right? And I think that's one of the, I would say the first level of appreciation was the fact that, things came together and Hashem organized things in such a way, you go to the wrong place basically to find Dr. Slutskin and you'll see Rabbi Tevin. And he'll send you miraculously to someone who's got oxygen. I mean, if someone told me, could you direct me to a house in Haranov of someone with oxygen? I would say, no, I've got no idea. Now I would say, go to Rabbi Tevin, but I wouldn't know that, So to find that person, and he sent me there, and then Dr. Slutskin coming and going to, but I think that the next level is something that it reminds me of a comment of Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz, which is expounded on by Rabbi Nesanel Kelaty. I'll give you Rabbi Nesanel Kelaty's moshel for it. So that Joseph was sold down to Mitzrayim, and he got taken there in a caravan of donkeys. Now Rashi points out that donkeys usually carry foul-smelling whatever it is, the merchandise that these merchants are selling is usually like paraffin and oil and things that don't smell particularly nice. But he managed to travel in a caravan carrying sweet-smelling spices, right? And that was for the honor of Yosef. So the way Rabbi Nesanel Kelaty puts the question, he goes, imagine someone who's been sentenced to death, and on the day that they've come to take him away, he gets picked up in a long black limousine. So can you imagine the guy coming out going, oh, a stretch limo? I've never been in one of those before. Like, what are you talking about? They're taking you to be hanged. Why would you care that it's a comfortable car that they're taking you in? So Yosef had been ripped away from his family. He was being sold into slavery. Obviously, he felt terrible about the situation. How is it going to alleviate things by the fact that there's some perfume on the camels, right? So Chaim Shmulevitz says it's not the comfort of the actual smell. It's not the pleasantness of the odor that makes Yosef feel better. It's the indication that he hasn't been abandoned, because it's unusual, and he recognized it's unusual that camels with merchants should be carrying such a load. It's unusual. So he's able to make the calculation that obviously Hashem has sent this to me. Now, if Hashem is doing this at a time when I appear to be forsaken, it means I'm not forsaken. I haven't been abandoned. There's for whatever reason, and he doesn't understand why, I'm supposed to be going through this ordeal. But if I see side by side with that, Hashem has put a limit to it and said, this much you're not going to be abandoned. This much you're going to have, you're not abandoned at all. This pain you're not going to have. You're not going to have the pain of the. So that is an indication that the whole thing is Hashem looking after you. So when I look back and I see that, you know, how my wife and I were like gradually led through this step by step with things falling into place. It gives you a feeling that you weren't just abandoned to some random negative influence in the world, but for whatever reason to be, we don't understand why Hashem wants us to go through the ordeal, but he's with us at the same time because he's managing things, he's easing us through everything, and he just made everything come together.
That's amazing. That's massively inspiring. Yeah, to know that in hard junctures, even as you said, junctures that we don't understand, the fact that Hashem is putting the pieces together or orchestrating events, that's massively important.
Yep, Baruch Hashem. We're very thankful.
Amazing.
Okay.
Amazing. Thanks so much. I really appreciate the time, as does everyone else who will be watching and listening. And the traditional end part to this is to remind the viewers to please subscribe to the channel and enjoy the rest of the series From Darkness to Light. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kol Tov, Shavua Tov.